welcome to Horns Up. I'm Animesh.
And I'm Peter.
And our death metal discussions continue on the podcast. For today, we're joined by Reeking Aura, who released their first studio album, Blood and Bonemeal, earlier this year. And in a rare feat, we have quite a few of the band members, well, at least 50% of them, joining us on this episode. Welcome to Horns Up, guys. Could I ask you all to introduce yourselves so that our listeners know who's who? And if it makes your life easy, you can do this in alphabetical order.
Okay, so I would still go first with R-I before R-Y and then W. Yes. So, hey, I'm Rick. I play guitar in this band, and that's about it.
I'm Ryan Lipinski, and I play the other guitar in this band and the solos.
I'm Will, and I'm the vocalist of the band.
Alrighty. Welcome, guys. Will, how do you search for yourself on Google, and how many people have joked about you slapping them?
It's I mean,
wait 1 second. I have to clue everyone in first. His full name is Will Smith.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's that's my name, man. It's a lot of, obviously that's a pretty common joke. Everyone's a comedian,
I know, right? Low hanging fruit.
Especially after the Oscars, I'm sure, right?
But wait, were you called Fresh Prince before that then?
Only for the last 30 years. It's like I said, everyone's a comedian,
It's probably a good way to be anonymous, though. No one can really find you. Like, you're pretty, like, your name. How many Will Smiths are out there? I couldn't imagine.
Google links the famous Will Smith to some of my bands if you look it up.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
Which is
so
kind of
cool.
I kind of enjoy that weird part of it where it's like, it's kind of hard to look me up and that sort of thing. So that's me. I don't care, man. I mean, at the end of the day, we're both still alive. So I might be the most famous one at the end of the day one day. Who knows?
I'm waiting for the one day when the other Will Smith somehow stumbles upon you and shouts you out like, "Oh, who is this guy?" Like, that's my fantasy. Like, in my head, that will happen. Like, who's this great death metal guy? And then we become famous.
Or in a rare biopic of sorts, Will Smith plays Will Smith.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Let's get all the jokes out of the way, right? I mean, let's get to know you guys better. And personally, I know at least some of your bands for a while now, because you guys have been in bands like Unearthly Trance. Oh, actually, wait, I have to do this properly. Take a deep breath. Unearthly Trance, After Birth, Buckshot Facelift, Grey Skies Fallen, Artificial Brain. I know there are like so many more I've not named, but I'm going to stop right there. But what's more of interest to all our listeners is, how did all of you get together and become part of Reeking Aura?
Well, it happens over the course of, if I look back at it, 20 something years where I met Ryan. I'm in the band Grey Skies Fallen, and Ryan in 1999 originally filled in for us on bass one time at a festival we played. It was called the November to Dismember in San Antonio, Texas. And Ryan filled in, and we played that show with In Flames and Moonspell. That was our set right there. And then after that, we became friends. We stayed friends. And years down the line, when I was in Buckshot Facelift, also with Will and Tom, who plays bass in this band, and also Terrell, who plays the other guitar in this band. Terrell's in a band called Thetis, which is also amazing. And we all talked about getting together and maybe doing something, but it was me and Ryan that initially started talking about doing a death metal band on the side. And one day we said, let's get it going, and let's bring in Buckshot Facelift minus the drummer, Sal, who's not in this band for oh man, I don't even want. Let's. We have
it looks like you're opening a can of worms there, are you?
Oh, he knows the deal. But it's good, and we just merged Buckshot Facelift and mine and Ryan's idea of doing a death metal band, and kind of that's how it started, really.
And we also played when each other's bands played with each other over the years, like shows, like quite often. Like, I think one of the first shows Darren played for Unearthly Trance, we played with Grey Skies Fallen, like 2001. So we go way back, and we've always kept in touch. And then when we wanted to do a project, we just kind of floated the idea for a few years. Mm-hmm. Came up with some rough ideas, and then once we finally got jamming with Terrell and Tom and the drum machine, then we started getting the ideas rolling.
Mm-hmm. So is it safe to say that Reeking Aura is a super group of sorts? Or is it more similar to, say, it's the Guns N' Roses from the LA Guns and the Hollywood?
Right.
I'd say if either of those are the case, then somebody owes me a lot of money. I don't know who's funding any of that if that's the case, man. Yeah. But if anything, I think it's more of a last man standing situation, because through all these years, like, he was joking around about our drummer and Buckshot Facelift. The reality is he's a family man. He's a hardworking, career-minded person. And this is the reality of the situation. As we grow older, some of us do want to write music and record albums and be on stage still with our bands, and other people have other motivations in life, which is fine. We're still good friends. It's great. But this band is kind of like, it represents our group of friends and our network of musicians here on Long Island and New York, Staten Island, New Jersey. We all still wanted to stay together. All of us who were in Buckshot Facelift together, we still wanted to keep writing music together. And Ryan and Rick go back so long, like they were just explaining, they wanted to write music together. So it's kind of like we're all people. We're, none of us in this band are teenagers. And we've been doing this for a long time, and it's just guys of a certain age. We have certain influences, certain common memories, and common things we want to share through the music. So you might call it a super group, but we're all just guys who are in a ton of bands together, and this is where we all are coming together and pooling a lot of our resources and experience.
That's super, super, super.
Before we get into Blood and Bonemeal, right, I want to ask you about your EP that you put out, and it's titled Beneath the Canopy of Compost. Now, in a strange way, it released in April 2020, just as the lockdowns were being forced, and it's like all over the world, right? And, even though it's a 3-track EP, typically, if you think about it, you'd kind of promote it or kind of through live shows and stuff like that. But looking back, what are your thoughts on the release? I mean, it's been a couple of years.
Well, when we recorded it, it was like right before the pandemic broke out. And we were in Queens. Corona, Queens is where it first kind of took off. So it was crazy. Literally, right? We were done recording. We're like, wow, we were just in Queens, and now there's a crazy outbreak. And we didn't think it was going to be as crazy as it was. And we got it in before the lockdown, luckily. Otherwise, we would have probably done nothing. So getting that EP done was really a good beginning to the band, and then we were able to build off that during the lockdown, just coming up with ideas and stuff.
Yeah, looking back at it, it kind of, with the whole pandemic and all that, as it got out, perfect timing as far as that is concerned. We were able to then, okay, here's a little demo or EP or whatever it was, and that allowed us to hunker down a little bit and write a record, when normally we would probably be playing shows or I'm sure we'd be writing also if there was no pandemic, but we were able to write the whole album and get it recorded.
It was total coincidence that we were able to complete it within a week or two of things really getting shut down and there being an outbreak out. So it was just total sheer coincidence. And then we were able to kind of put it out like the guys were saying. So it was crazy timing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's also I like how you're kind of looking at it from the brighter side of things, so to say, right? Especially with the hindsight of the last 2 years. But now let's turn our attention to Blood and Bonemeal, right? I mean, that's the reason why Animesh and I got you on this podcast. So it's been slightly over a month since the album released. How does it feel just reading the feedback and some of the reviews that you've got for the album so far?
I'm glad people dig the cover art. We didn't know what kind of a response we might get with that. It's a little bright, but I'm joking. But in reality, I feel like a lot of people took the time to read the lyrics and the concept into the album, and people are understanding it, which is great. And I think it kind of clicked with people, which is really nice to see, man. We appreciate all the support. We played an album release show a week ago today here in at Amityville Music Hall here on Long Island, and that was great. Shout out to the bands Ninth Realm, Cavern Womb, and Doom Creeper, that and all the people that were there. So we're just like anyone, we're just flattered and humbled by the response. If the other guys have something to add.
Yeah, it's been good, and it's, of course, it's great having an amazing record label behind you, and that's Profound Lore Records, helping us out, of course, along the way. Chris from Profound Lore has been on board with us from pretty much day one. As soon as he heard that this band existed, he was, oh, cool, that's cool, guys. I'm interested in that. So yeah, we got it over to Chris, and he helped us out, and that's been great. Also, the feedback's been very good for the most part, and we're happy about that. The live shows, we've played 2 shows. We'll mention one of them, and most of the video from that show is up on our YouTube, a little plug. So if you want to see us live, that's a simple way to do it. Just, it's not the best footage, but it's good footage. See what we're about. And we're real psyched about things.
Handheld fan cam footage is the way to experience live gigs, man. Like Pro Shot is a different thing altogether, but
Right.
What should people be searching for on YouTube to land up at the correct page?
Just our channel, Reeking Aura. We have a channel there, which is in its infancy. Just a couple videos on there so far. There are like 4 or 5 live videos from this past weekend, though. And it was, again, another shout out to Fergus from Buckshot Facelift. He filmed that on my iPhone. And so it gives it that underground feel, a little iPhone feel in a club on a 1 p.m. matinee on a Saturday afternoon.
Oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Our friend Peter here has helped a lot of bands out in the past with similar stuff. He likes doing that too.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I was watching the video, I have to say, I mean, like, it's all from one end. So I was like, at one point, I was like, hey, is there something wrong in the audio? And then I realized I just can't hear the vocals because it's all just guitars, right?
Yeah, he filmed it from the side of the stage. And I said, go to the front of the stage. I'm trying to plug all my cables in. I'm trying to get everything together. I go to the front. Oh, yeah, I'll go to the front. So if you look on one of the videos, I think it's Harvesting the Hatchet. During the middle of the song, he runs to the front of the stage, and it sounds really good, and it looks really good. And it's like, oh yeah, that's really cool, man. Leave it like that. And he keeps it there for like a minute and a half, and then goes back to the side of the stage. And I talked to him on the phone yesterday. I said, I know why you were on the side of the stage. It's because there was a shelf where you could put your beer, correct? Correct? And he said, yeah, that's basically it. So it's because there was a shelf there for his beer. And that's why we decided.
Cameraman education too. Anyways, so let's get to the concept, right? Literature says that the Blood and Bonemeal is a concept album centered around the caretaker of a desolate agricultural property and that person's struggle with morbid psychosis. How was this developed, guys? Who came up with this? What's the fascination with morbid psychosis here?
Wow. Well, that's from the promotion from the album, from the write-up that we came up with. So it's kind of that I was trying to describe as much as I could about an album's worth of lyrics and themes in one sentence. So that's all these big descriptive words, morbid psychosis and desolate. But in reality, as I said in the past, I have my own interest. I'm no expert, but I think other members of the band probably too, in varying ways, have their own interest in different elements of agriculture, homesteading, whether it's growing your own vegetables or just, doing for yourself a little bit more, keeping things a little more natural, however you can. And during the time that they were writing the music for the album and getting the whole album together on in terms of the instruments and the composition, and I was responsible for writing the lyrics, it was also a time where I was spending a lot more time at home between 2020 and 2021. Like a lot of people were, and like some people were, I was trying to learn a lot more about gardening, growing my own vegetables, composting, things like that. We have a small suburban property here, in Long Island, which is outside of New York City in the suburbs. So it's not like I'm outside on some huge farm, but I think a lot of that found its way into the lyrics. And it's something that, depending who you talk to, in the metal scene, I think there's a lot more crossover than you might think. I do my own podcast. We talk to a lot of people who are vegans, and a lot of people who believe in growing their own and going local and all that sort of thing. So it's topical nowadays, man. But to kind of give you the long story short, it's a little bit of real life experience funneled through all that death metal and horror movies and science fiction that we love so much.
So is this going to become like one of the things that the band Reeking Aura is known for? Songs around not agriculture based, but I don't know, around growing your own food?
Nature. I mean, some aspect of nature.
Yeah. I mean,
like vegetation.
There's
we're claiming the agriculture metal throne.
And even reading your song titles, I mean, that link is definitely there, right? A vegetative mush that melts among the shells lined with meats of indeterminate origin. That's the title gives Nile a run for its money.
Yeah. I was just gonna say that also.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to remember. I'm gonna have to be able to say that on stage when I'm all sweaty and out of breath, man. It's gonna be difficult.
And for the longest time, I genuinely thought it was Grooved. And I was wondering what the fuck that was until I realized it's Grublas.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That one is a special dedication to the drummer of Buckshot Facelift. For me, guy. A lot of it is just this kind of fascination with the natural world, insects, compost, sometimes dead animals who, growing vegetables, life from death, all that sort of thing, but funneled through, like I said, death metal and all this sort of thing. And for the band, if you go back to the Beneath the Canopy of Composts, those songs are more about the idea of ancient civilizations that have been overgrown by nature. Wherever in the world, like archaeologists find traces of civilization underneath, huge jungles or huge forests and things like that. So there's kind of like this vague, organic nature kind of theme that we'll keep exploring. I don't see any reason to limit it. Who knows what the next album will be about? We haven't plucked it out of the sky yet.
Yeah.
All right. So since we've talked a bit about the album, let's just give our audience a taste of this concept, right? So which song do you think best represents the album and why?
Wow.
You guys want to take a stab at that in terms of what you would think, even if it's like musically? And because I'm thinking for lyrically.
The song I hear jumping out a lot lately in my head is Harvesting the Hatchet. I've been liking that one a lot lately too. It's kind of got a certain vibe to it that is kind of maybe where we'll go in the future. I don't know. A little bit more experimental and driving, and we mess around with harmonies a lot. And I think that I don't know, that song just has something cool about it that I think could represent the album in a good way. Yeah, that's where I was coming from. It has the doom ending, which we have a lot of like doom influence, and at the end, it kind of just breaks down and it's got this crushing ending, which I obviously like.
Alrighty, Will, do you want to give us some insight about Harvesting the Hatchet and how the lyrics go on that one?
Well, it's the title itself is a play on the old saying, bury the hatchet. Like if we have a problem together, we bury the hatchet. But then sometimes you walk away thinking you buried the hatchet, and that person will harvest the hatchet and use it to stab you in the back. That being said, lyrically, the song has a lot more to do with it. It's a good one to play too right now, I think, because lyrically it hints at a lot that's going on in the album. Like it's a good short story that hints at some of the gross details of the album and the overall story of this kind of deranged or unstable agricultural person. And how they believe something, more than natural is going on the grounds they tend to. So lyrically, it's a good narrative for that too.
Fantastic. Here it is. Here's Harvesting the Hatchet. Alrighty, guys, three guitarists in one band. How do you guys make it come together?
It's a good question. I don't really remember where we initially decided on three. Do you, Rick?
It was basically when we had talked to Will, me and you had talked to Will about becoming the vocalist. And then me and Will had kind of said, well, what about Terrell and Tom to fill out the ranks?
But weren't we already rehearsing at Tom's already? As like, remember the four of us were practicing with the drum machine? Like the early days.
Terrell was always there. I think
Terrell was always on board. So I think it was just like, yeah, why not? Like, let's do all of it.
Yeah, and I'd always wanted to do three guitars in a band. I'm trying to do
your idea then. Because I don't ever remember like deciding like let's do three guitars. It just kind of happened.
It just kind of happened, yeah. And we're making it work to the best of our abilities, and we're happy with the results so far.
Yeah, it's cool. You get to be creative, and you're like, none of the material is too technical or complicated. But when we all kind of put our own spin on parts, like different things come out of it that I would have never heard. You know, it gives it almost like a three-dimensional feeling sometimes when three guitars are putting their own different spin and like, you know, different octave or a slight harmony on a part came out really cool. And I think in the future, we're going to explore it much more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It like, I know it's sonically challenging, like from a production standpoint, because all three of you need to not only complement each other, but also have kind of like your individual tones, not kind of like leak on each other. That's one way of looking at it. The other way to look at it is, I don't know, do you guys have like job roles of sorts defined, like in the sense that, okay, I will only do rhythms and I will only play solos here and you will only play solos there? Or
loosely, I mean, on the record, my guitar's down the center channel and Rick's on the right and Terrell's on the left, I believe, right?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to point out too. Yeah,
my role is play more of the bass rhythms and then also the guitar leads, and Terrell and Rick do a lot of the harmonies, so they kind of complement my parts and each other. So they do a lot of the kind of cooler harmony stuff that you hear, and I do more of the root notes closer to what the bass does, as well as lead guitars on lead guitar breaks. So those are the kind of rough roles, I would say. And Rick and Terrell also do leads as well. And I'm sure they will be in the future as well.
I'm pretty sure we'll get to hear even more dueling solos. Maybe like is there a word for tripling? Like if there's a dueling,
so we should do that.
A triple guitar solo?
Sure, triple harmony attack. Yeah, sure. We were for all that shit, man.
Like Hearing Aid. Remember that, Rick? Hearing Aid?
yeah.
It was like 17 guitarist solo.
Oh my god.
Look it up. It's funny.
Okay.
Wow.
A few reviews I've read of the album have a common grouse, which is that given this unique lineup with 3 guitarists, the reviews feel that there could have been even more riffage and solo work on the album. Is that a fair thing to ask for?
My thing on it is I think I can agree in certain aspects, whereas I think a lot of the stuff that we had recorded was written in isolation kind of deal, and it wasn't really written in a band kind of setting where certain ideas get thrown around and then things come together more organically in that way. I think perhaps on this newer material we're going to be doing that kind of stuff, so the guitars, when we're all in a room coming up with the parts, maybe could be a tad more defined in certain aspects. And also as we go along, we get to know how each other plays in certain roles and things of this nature, and it'll evolve. So I'm thinking, yes, I mean, I can agree with that in certain aspects. Like, I do want to take more advantage of the 3 guitars, and I think it's going to be represented on the future material.
I can agree with it, but I'm also totally cool with like minimalism and simplicity at times.
Yeah,
I think the main thing is that like most of the stuff I wrote and then the guys learned, like Rick said, there'll be much more collaboration in the future. But, you know, in terms of there should be more solos or not, you know, I don't think there needs to be tons of solos in our music, but I think Rick is really good at soloing, and I think it'd be cool if, you know, he had more solos where it wasn't just me most of the time. And I think we could trade off, like you said. So there's a lot of variations, but in terms of, is there enough guitar in it? I think if we never told people there was 3 guitars in a band, no one would ever ask those questions, you know? So it's kind of like, depends. Like if we were an anonymous band, you wouldn't say, oh, how many guitars are in there? Is it good enough?
Yeah, because one guy could do in the studio could do everything that we do, right? So, you know,
perception thing, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
I was just going to add that I think it comes down to when a band is built as having 3 guitars right off the bat, the first thing that will come to my mind is like this kind of like necrophagists or carcass, like, harmony fireworks show full of harmonies all over the place. But with Reeking Aura, I think conceptually the idea is more having a wealth of experience for these guys to draw from for the little things, for the little variations, the little leads, the little harmonies that are going on, the little last minute things that are thrown in there with an effects pedal while we're recording the album. And also this is the last thing I'll say, the wall of noise, the big, huge vacuumous, like wall, black hole of noise that comes out of the speakers. And I think Colin Marston did a great job capturing the 3 different guitar tones and leveling them against one another. So it's not necessarily about like, which I love bands. I love all sorts of harmonies. I love Carcass and Necrophagus, don't get me wrong, but that's not, I don't think what these guys were going for on this particular album. If they want to go that route on the next album, I'll still be growling and screaming all over it.
Hell yeah, man.
But now, since you brought up Colin, right, and we've had Colin on the podcast before,
awesome.
So that was one insane conversation, and just kind of like wrapping our head around the amount of music that he releases, right? Because I'm pretty sure by the time we put out this chat, he would have already released like, I don't know how many albums, right?
Yeah,
you just lose track.
5 or 6.
But many of them with our esteemed bandmate Ryan sitting right here. Ryan and Colin do music together.
Wow. So that's crazy. So just warn us, right? But,
I have a few Colin projects right here, actually, man. But yeah,
that's awesome. So one of the things is I read that this album was actually recorded in 2 days. Back in December 2021 last year. So how easy? I mean, the 2 ways you think about it, right? Either it was like really easy or it was really difficult. So like break that down for us. What was it like?
The drums are recorded somewhere else first, so it's more than 2 days.
The drums were recorded, I believe, in 2 days elsewhere. Right. So when we got into Colin's studio, we had drums already done.
Nice.
Yeah.
But still, it's
So-
still like 2 days just for everything else too is a challenging schedule, man.
I mean, I like to work quickly, and I try to be as prepared as I can be when I come to the studio. So it's like, no, like it's just the way I like to work. If I can get it in the first take, awesome. You know, like that's the way I work, and I don't like to waste time. Just be efficient, and things are going smoothly. Just keep going, you know. And all these guys are great players, so it's really kind of a pleasure. Like we're all just hanging out and having fun. Like just, all right, your turn, you're up, and like it was just really a fun 2 day, fun process.
Yeah, and in this band, we have to practice on our own and come to rehearsal prepared, come to recording prepared. So, when we show up at a studio to record, everyone's ready to go. So, and plus me, I was sitting there the whole time being an asshole. I was like, oh, Black Sabbath recorded their first album in 8 hours, and we're sitting here. And we're sitting here for 3 days trying to come on, guys, let's fucking go, and I was being an asshole, and it's a joke, and I wanted it done fast because I know everyone says, oh, old school, this band is old school, whatever. That's old school. Bands used to crank out records in a day, in 2 days and shit, on 8 tracks and stuff like that. So, and a little bit of, in the back of my mind, I was thinking of that too. Like, oh, everyone wants to call this an old school band and stuff. Okay, well, here's old school. We're going to record this record in 2 days, and it sounds pretty fucking good. So,
having said that, 2 days isn't a lot of time for experimentation, right? Like, wouldn't you want to play around with all the fascinating stuff Colin can conjure?
Well, what happened was we weren't signed before we recorded the album. So we financed the recording ourselves, and we were trying to be kind of as economical as possible. And then we sent a record to Profound Laura, and they wanted to put it out. So we weren't really looking to spend tons of time in the studio. But in retrospect, if we had another day, sure. But in the future, I think we'll take a little bit more time. Just to maybe put some extra touches on. It's hard to say. We went. I didn't feel rushed at all. We did long days. I'll say that.
Yeah, we did 12-hour days. But when you're sitting there and I'm sitting there and I hear somebody recording guitars for 6 hours, I hear shit in my head that when I'm ready to record, I'm going to play this that I was just hearing in my head for 6 hours. And that's, I think, Terrell in the song you guys just played, Harvesting the Hatchet. As soon as you hit play on that song, there's this ambient kind of ethereal guitar. That's Terrell going at the last second. He goes, oh, by the way, I want to throw this in there. And that became my favorite part of the song. His last minute, oh, by the way, kind of thing.
Right.
So
I would just add too that, 2 days, 2 days, 2 hours, whatever, it's the end result of, depending on what song you're talking about, a year to 2 years of kicking it back and forth between band members and writing parts. And these guys have pedals and setups in their individual houses where they live, where they're practicing the parts. I know me, I was there with the notebook every night. So did we go in and in a real efficient way record the album very fast? Yes, but we had plenty of time to do our homework, and everyone did their homework, to the point where I'll just add this, before, the idea of us all being in the band together. This is a group of guys that all can work individually on our own and come together and play a show or record an album with minimal time in a room together. We can all do our homework on our own and come into it. And as we've gone through the last few years now, we've sorted out this lineup specifically because people are capable of doing that. There's some people that respectfully, they have family, they have jobs, they have this or that, they work a certain way, they can't do that. So that's just the way we work, man. And even right now we got a new song floating around. We're talking concepts for the next album, and if we can't all get in a room together and drink beers every Friday night, it would be great if we could, but we could still write music and come off polished. I'll give all my bandmates props on that.
Yeah, in this day and age with technology, it makes things a lot easier. The shooting of files over to each other and stuff like that. The stuff gets demoed before we even rehearse, so that's how it works.
All right. Since we talked about recording, right, let's play one more song. And this time, which was the most challenging song to record and why?
Well, I could take a stab at it vocally. What was difficult? I found Grub Lust, the main vocal part in the beginning. The pattern comes back twice when they bring back the riff. It's like the main verse was kind of difficult for me personally. I don't know if there was anything about Grub Lust that you found a little off. I don't know.
No, nothing was off as far as
difficult, I guess.
I don't have any kind of specific song, but for me personally, I have like nerve injuries in my arm and all sorts of physical. I had spinal surgery a couple of years ago for some shit. So I'm a little beat up. So when I play fast, a lot of times, I mean, I could do it, but sometimes it hurt. Even when I play slow, I mean, even when I just playing guitar sometimes hurts. So there were times where I locked up, my elbows and things like that. But yeah, so that's my answer, because I'm an old, decrepit man now. So
a song that was difficult.
Yeah, nothing in particular, but it was just playing.
So I'm the only one who had a song that was difficult. So Grub Lust, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good.
Alrighty, here it is. Here's Grub Lust.
one of the things about the album, right, that stood out to both Animesh and me was just how uneasy and claustrophobic the album made you kind of feel, right? I mean, I have to ask, like, was that the emotional journey that you wanted to take the listener on with the album?
Claustrophobic is an interesting word because you got the three guitars and the bass and the drums, all which I said I believe Colin Marston did a champion job of mixing, but it's a lot going on there, and that wall of noise these guys create with their guitars. And shout out to our bass player Tom Ander as well. It should be claustrophobic. I think, you know, that's part of the sonic effect, if that's what you're saying. Lyrically, I always thought of it being a lonely, isolated type of album, which can feel claustrophobic. So that's an interesting way. I don't know if the other guys have input on that.
Yeah, like I hear the album as like a bombardment of sound, like being bombarded with guitars and bass and drums, right? So maybe you're standing. This is crazy, but being bombarded like puts you can kind of confine you into maybe a claustrophobic feeling. So I don't know, maybe in a way, like in some crazy way, yeah, I could see that. But yeah, I can hear what you're saying. Totally, man. There's definitely an onslaught from all sides, I think. You know, so you're getting kind of boxed in.
That's and just to clarify on that claustrophobic part, right? It was also not just the instruments, but just that entire atmosphere, right? There's like this atmosphere. Of it. Yeah, this permeates the entire album. And I think there's two ways of looking at it, right? Like sometimes you just jam in as much as possible and that can kind of make you feel, but also just that eeriness of that atmosphere could also just make you feel a bit uneasy. That was kind of also what I was going for.
The interludes we throw in also help that also. You know, those little interludes we do, I think, to add to the atmosphere, which is part of our whole sound. And originally, you know, with the EP, we didn't really do that, but it was always from the beginning, hey, let's throw some creepy interlude shit in there.
I've always been a fan of like eerie, kind of slightly strange, creepy death metal, any kind of metal. And so I think bringing those elements in really brought out, and the lyrics and like the whole vibe is like a little bit off, you know, you're like, what the, you know, this is a bit strange. Like, there's a part of it that's normal, like, oh, this is metal, but then there's something underneath the surface that kind of is a little bit disturbing, I think.
Yeah, the other thing that really took me by surprise, or not by surprise, actually, I was expecting it, but I wasn't expecting it to the degree that it was as such experienced by me, was just how pummeling the entire record is. It's song after song after song after song, and there's really not like a lot of breathing room as such, which goes back to the whole claustrophobic element that Peter was also talking about. It kind of like pummels you into submission to a degree.
Yeah, that's kind of implying too when I was describing it. Yeah, that's how I feel when I hear it, and I like to listen to it on my nice Sony headphones, extremely loud, and I'm probably gonna go deaf, you know, from 30 years of this shit, but I don't know, whatever. And it sounds really good being pummeled on the bus going to work every morning, however often I listen to it. But yeah,
I think some of that could be attributed to our drummer Sam. You know, majority of the music, you know, Ryan does write, but you know, Sam brings his own energy obviously to the drum parts, and he's an up and coming drummer that's been playing in quite a few bands from here, Long Island, New York, you know, get his chops up the last few years. So it was really great to like let him loose on our sound. And I feel like he brings a lot to Reeking Aura, you know, so.
Yeah, totally. He was an animal.
Awesome. So, you know, I'm going to come back to something that you said in the start, right? Is now we know there's a death metal sound from New York, right? The New York death metal thing. But do you think that there's a Long Island death metal sound? And how would you describe it?
That's for Will. That's a question for Will, but I would say yes.
I agree, but Will could probably explain this in a good way.
The stage is all yours, Will.
Thank you for the vote of confidence, guys. Yeah, it's well, I mean, it's really you can prove it. There's evidence. Suffocation is like everyone in the death metal scene knows Suffocation. They're a big band. They're from Long Island, New York. They're from Suffolk County, New York, which is like more eastern Long Island, further away from the city, like just more straight up Long Island out in the suburbs here. And then you have Pyrexia, which has in the beginning has members that, you know, all those guys went to high school with Suffocation and that sort of thing loosely. And so you go back and listen to Pyrexia, Serpent of Mockery, Suffocation, Effigy of the Forgotten. There's your Long Island death metal right there. Then you have Internal Bleeding kind of comes along, and they take it and mold it down into something that's a little bit more oriented on the slams and the grooves, and that becomes the Long Island sound throughout the late 90s and early 2000s. And like you talk about New York sound, listen to bands like Morpheus Descends, or, you know, look at Mortician, look at Immolation, look at Malignancy is its own thing, but there's like upstate New York, there's Long Island, nowadays Brooklyn and Queens arguably could probably have there. So it's a big picture. So yeah, if you want to start with Long Island, Suffocation, Pyrexia, Internal Bleeding are like your gold trilogy, and then it all trickles down from there. But for the last 10-15 years, there's been a lot of young bands coming out just ignoring any blueprints. And one of my favorites was Locus Mortis. Some of those guys are now in Funeral Dancer, and you're not really going to hear a lot of slams and brutal guttural death metal stuff in what they do. They're more old school. So the idea of a Long Island sound, it's more of a nostalgic thing nowadays, maybe, you know.
But most importantly, those bands were early. Like Long Island death metal were one of the earliest kind of pushing the genre in like even more extreme directions, I think. Because I remember when I was a kid, I met one of the guys from Pyrexia or something, and they gave me like a demo and stuff, and they said they were going to play shows in Texas and stuff. Like I think it was like 94, and like, wow, you guys are playing Texas and shit. But just even like in the early 90s, these guys would like traded all around the world, and everybody got into them, and I think they influenced a lot of bands.
That's really funny. I just got to add real quick that I do a podcast called Heavy Hole Podcast. Just doing a little cross promotion. I wasn't going to try to do that to you, but
go for it.
I got to throw it in there. We had Chris Basile, who might have been that guy. I don't know, but he's been in Pyrexia since the very beginning, and to this day. And we've had him on the podcast a few times. And I think the very first time he told like his whole life story, and he talked about Pyrexia going down to Texas. And there's a whole story about how he got locked up in jail in Texas for the night with one of the guys from one of the other bands from Texas down there. But he's now he's got friends for life that he was locked up in Texas with, I guess, and they're all cool. Everybody made it out okay. It's just funny you happen to say like
that's amazing.
I gave you a demo and he says I'm going to Texas. Like I know how that
ended. That's a great story. But I have to come back to another thing that we just spoke about, and at least spoke quite a bit about, was the live shows. Because both Animation and I kind of watched the videos, as you could imagine. And I think that's fucking great. Like I think what's great about YouTube is that you get to watch such like handheld footage and stuff like that. Like it has to be that grimy sound or whatever. You don't want the pro shot stuff, right? But
sure. For this kind of stuff.
Yeah. But having said that, do you guys have any more shows lined up in the coming months in there?
Well, go ahead, Will.
I was just gonna say, no, I don't think we can announce any of them.
Right? We're working on things.
Okay.
There's things brewing.
Because I don't want to
two socials.
We've got some good friends that we're working with, trying to hook us up with some stuff in November out of state and something here on Long Island in December. Loud cars driving past, sorry. And I don't think either has been announced yet, but we all know the deal behind the scenes. So I would tell people to just watch out on social media for that, man. I don't think there's anything that we can announce yet, right?
Nah, not to my knowledge, but hopefully soon. And our social media will have all the information. Of course.
The plan is definitely start playing more shows and getting out there for sure.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're working on it.
So wait, so we can't announce the India show as yet.
Oh man,
you can announce that one if you want.
That was supposed to
Let me know.
Yeah, seriously, right? That would be crazy.
The Mumbai Death Metal Fest. Is that happening?
We could do Reek Fest. We could do Reek Fest in India. Yeah.
I'll just put it out there. It's one of my dreams to explore the world via death metal. So I'll go play anywhere they have a stage and death metal fans. If we could work it out somehow. So
that would be amazing.
For what it's worth, I think still 65% of all our population is engaged in agriculture. So
yeah,
just saying.
So, there you go.
We have a good target audience, and it's got a big population, so that's amazing.
All righty, guys. Final question: what's your ambition for Reeking Aura? Do you guys have a long-term or a short-term plan already chalked out?
I just want to keep making records, getting better and better. And on the live front, I would like to be able to pick and choose some good fests and some good shows and tours and stuff. And that's all I could ask for. And that's all I want with this band.
Yeah, just to be able to keep putting out records like on a label and have people hear it is like the best thing for me. Like I've recorded many things that put out myself and it's cool, but like to have a label put out something and people hear it all around, talking to people that have heard it from India that want to do a podcast, it's pretty awesome, man. So it's very rewarding for me to like have stuff be released out there and then to get feedback and just know that it's like people are listening to it. It's great. And then getting out there for shows and, doing more stuff with these guys, rehearsing more, I hope.
Yeah. Yes. Writing soon. Like we're going to get started. We already are started technically on writing the next album.
Yeah. So the next step.
Yeah. Me, Terrell, and Ryan are going to get in a room. We're going to start doing that on the semi-regular basis to get the writing kick-started. That's what I like. And I think that'll happen.
Yeah, I would just everything these guys just said, and I would just add again, Profound Lore Records has been excellent to us, and in terms of other projects we've been involved in, and look, obviously I want to tour the world, I want to play every fest, I want to record 1 million albums, I want to be with these guys for 100 years, but like being more specific, like I definitely I want us to take full advantage of the platform Profound Lore Records gives to us. You know what I mean? So we're just trying to work hard and live up to that name, and to take advantage of everything and not take it for granted, which I credit my bandmates with 100%. And we appreciate you guys supporting us and have taken the time to research the band and research my name and grant us the opportunity to be on your platform. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, it means a lot to us, guys. Very appreciative.
Thank you for saying that. It means a lot to us as well. So there you have it. That was Reeking Aura. Go and check out Blood and Bonemeal. And when you're done with that, why don't you come back and let us know what you thought of it? As always, you can do that on hornsupod.com or on Twitter at hornsupod. I'm on Twitter at Asmohani.
I'm at Trend Crusher.
And this was Horns Up.
Horns Up, guys.